Welcome back to my channel, my friends. Let's talk about consuming dairy, what it does for health, what it does for fat loss. And this video is coming from someone who used to be, vegan. I went vegan for almost 2 years in 2021 and for two big reasons. One, I had actually spent 1.5 years in Australia not consuming a lot of dairy at all. And when I came back to India and suddenly just drank milk and ate yogurt, I think my body developed kind of a sensitivity towards it and would not tolerate it. So I was having a little bit of digestion trouble. And number two, I was at that point where I would do anything for weight loss. And I thought that dairy would help me lose weight and lose fat. And well, my results, I did lose weight, I did lose fat, and I had a little less bloating and inflammation. But in terms of acne, I really never had major trouble with it, nor did I actually feel any change in terms of my energy or digestion. And you need to remember that the weight loss was not solely because I got off of dairy. I actually had my ACL surgery, so I was on a lot of pain medication. My appetite was not that great, and because I went vegan, I was eating a lot more fruits and veggies rather than just curd and yogurt, because that also makes you feel a lot fuller. And I couldn't get out of the house, so I was eating proper home cooked meals, and I was not eating a lot because I was not exercising, and so dumb of me because I needed the fuel for my recovery. And cutting out dairy also meant saying no to sweets, cakes, chocolates, biscuits, all Indian sweets basically. And so I automatically just lost weight. Fast forward to today, I am no longer vegan. I eat eggs on a regular basis, if not daily. And I eat cottage cheese about once in 10 days, depending on if I'm going out or someone else is cooking it, because I have no patience to make it. But bro, paneer tikka, paneer masala, to die for. You can't live without that. And I know it's not the best coming from an ex-vegan, or it's not the most ideal coming from an ex-vegan, but really, I missed it. I used to be a dairy girl, and yogurt is my best friend in this hot weather. But I don't consume milk directly, and honestly, my digestion has been good. It's not affected me. I started getting back into it slowly, and I also gained weight, muscle, before I even started consuming dairy. So it's all good. But in this video, we will look at if cutting out dairy helps with weight loss and fat loss, how it affects gut health and digestion, what is lactose intolerance, what is lactase persistence, and how dairy consumption affects ovulation, fertility, and PCOS. And hopefully by the end of this video, you are able to dispel some myths about dairy consumption and nutrition and make an informed choice about your nutrition and just make food enjoyable for yourself. Honestly guys, I feel so less stressed that I've simplified my food now and I don't have to worry so much. Also because my mom cooks at me at times and that takes out a big headache from my life. But no, honestly, I've included dairy in small amounts and it's going great, it's working good. And also, like I said, I used to be such a dairy girl. Cottage cheese and yogurt for life. And if you guys like these kind of videos, please do give me a big thumbs up and that little bell at the bottom. So basically like and subscribe because it helps me out and I really appreciate it. Let's get into it now. Dairy is generally considered to be part of a healthy, well-balanced diet. But of late, with everything that's been going on and all the trends and fads, it's kind of earned a sour name. Dairy causes inflammation, gut problems, digestion issues, acne, bloating, weight gain, not good for fertility, not good for PCOS. There's full fat dairy, low fat dairy, no fat dairy, just dairy. I've read so much, give this girl a break. No, honestly, now I feel like having dairy now, don't you? Now what is exactly the deal? First, let's have a look at BMI, weight loss and fat loss. Now first and foremost, when someone does cut out dairy, they're not just cutting out milk, yogurt, cottage cheese, but they're also cutting out all the processed cheeses, pizzas, burgers, cakes, ice creams, all the desserts, Indian sweets, because they all have dairy in it or dairy in some form, which is cream, milk, clarified butter, and so you can't eat that. So automatically you start eating more home cooked food, maybe bake some sweets at home, which helps you lose weight. The other thing is that when somebody substitutes milk or yogurt with something like almond milk, oat milk or soy milk, which is probably lesser calorie dense than full fat milk in itself, aka it's a calorie deficit, so automatically weight loss, which is the basic science. Or even if you don't substitute it with anything else, it's still a calorie deficit, so they lose weight. But if it is substituted with something equally calorie dense, maybe the weight loss or the fat loss might not happen. But dairy does contain some important proteins and fats that can fit into a well-balanced diet. In fact, some studies have actually investigated the effects of dairy consumption on BMI, fat loss and weight loss. So let's look into that. So 2016 research actually investigated the relationship between milk and the effects on BMI. There were actually two studies, one which considered a study over a 10-year longitudinal period, also considering cardiovascular disease risk factors in about 1644 subjects, and a second which took into consideration 10,000 participants to find out the link between BMI and dairy consumption. And they actually came to this conclusion that higher baseline milk consumption level was associated with lower odds of increasing BMI or maintaining overweight and obesity status. So this actually means that the more milk someone consumed, they were at lesser risk of being obese or having a higher BMI. In contrast though, there were other studies which showed that dairy consumption had no effect whatsoever on the BMI or weight gain or weight loss, and there was one study that I found which said that it had a negative correlation, meaning higher consumption of dairy meant higher fat gain or higher weight gain. So from this, I can at least arrive at one conclusion. Drinking milk is not necessarily going to make you gain weight or fat, but too much of it will. Well, for that matter, too much of any milk will make you gain weight. But what about the fat content? Well, there are contradicting opinions on this as well. Like anything in nutrition, there is no black and white answer. Many experts do believe that full fat milk actually reduces obesity because the fats help absorb the protein in the milk and also keeps one more satiated, which means there is no chance of overeating, while low fat milk or skimmed fat milk may not make a person feel so full, so they will tend to overeat. While others debate this and say too much fat content can just directly lead to gaining weight or gaining fat. So what do we say to this? As always, listen to your body. What works for your body? For me personally, I'm not a big fan of drinking milk, and even when I drink, let's say, soy milk or almond milk, it just genuinely makes me feel lighter on my stomach, and yeah, I don't mind it. But yogurt and cottage cheese, I'm good. I have it in moderation, and I think that's good. Moderation, right? Don't overdo anything, don't underdo anything, just do what's right for you. But now let's move on to bloating, inflammation and gut health. So milk or dairy for that matter has something called lactose, and our body has an enzyme called lactase which helps break down this lactose into glucose and galactose in the small intestine and then helps the body absorb it. Now, it is said, or some experts do say, that after the age of 5, in most of the human population, there's a process called weaning that happens, which basically means the amount of lactase in our body starts declining and eventually reaches 0, possibly by the age of 30. And when this happens, the body has no means of breaking down the lactose in the small intestine, so the lactose stays there, reacts with the bacteria and causes inflammation, bloating and indigestion, which is also called lactose intolerance. But as always in science, in evolution, there have been gene mutations and certain resistance to lactose intolerance, where certain parts in the world, the human population do not have lactose intolerance. They still have the lactase enzyme in their body even in adulthood, which is what is called lactase persistence. So they do not have any sensitivity or they do not have any intolerance to dairy, which is why they can continue consuming dairy. Now this can be because of several factors: gene mutations, the history of migrations, the history of disease, the history of what kind of regions they lived in, how the region developed, what their ancestors used to do, and so many other things. But largely lactase persistence is said to be found in the European regions and some parts of East Asia as well, if I am not wrong. But when it does come to lactose intolerance, what do you do? Check if you have lactose intolerance. Either get it tested, or if consuming dairy makes you feel uncomfortable, makes you feel bloated, try getting off dairy for a little bit and see how your body reacts. But don't just go for weight loss, go for how you feel with your digestion, whether you actually feel bloated, how does your stomach feel heavy. Think of all those things, maybe go off dairy for 3 weeks and see, and then try getting back into it and see if you're feeling uncomfortable again. Then you might have a possible possible sensitivity or intolerance to dairy, and so get it checked. Then you may not need to consume dairy. But if you really do not have any sort of sensitivity or any sort of intolerance, it's safe to say that you can consume dairy in moderate amounts and just not go all out. But I will say this though, since I was a kid, yogurt has always been a big part of our diet because it is fermented and is great for promoting good bacteria and digestion. And well, this is great news for me and all the yogurt lovers, because guys, cold yogurt in hot weather, buttermilk, lassi is great for the taste buds and for your health. And maybe I have a little bit of a bias to it, but if you can consume dairy, do consume yogurt. It's really, really good for your digestion. Otherwise, it's fine, stay off of dairy. That's totally okay as well. But remember, all this evidence is not very well researched, and there's still a lot of clarity that is to be gained, and it's all very nuanced and individualized. I feel like Shakespeare, but it is very individualized. So see how you feel towards dairy, see how your body reacts towards dairy, and incorporate it into your diet accordingly. Number 3, PCOS, ovulation, fertility, and how dairy consumption affects that. Sadly, the most common endocrine disorder right now is PCOS, and I've had so many women come to me just for this very reason, saying that they've been diagnosed with PCOS. The doctors asked them to lose weight, otherwise they might not get their periods, and just irregular periods if not PCOS. And while the exact cause of PCOS is not known, some of the factors might be because genetics or hereditary or insulin resistance, obesity, diabetes, lifestyle factors being very, very common. And some of the risks can also be infertility, breast cancer, again cardiovascular diseases, obesity, which is not good in the long run at all. And PCOS is actually considered as one of the main reasons for infertility, and it's considered as one of the main ovarian disorders, which is not a very nice thing. Now, I'm no expert on this topic, I'm not an endocrine specialist, but I did do a little bit of reading, and a 2020 paper actually studied the effects of dairy on insulin levels, type 2 diabetes, fertility, ovulation, and PCOS. And while there are many authors that actually say that dairy consumption is a risk for PCOS and increases the risk for infertility, has negative effects on ovulation and insulin levels, these are rather ambiguous. Now, the 2020 study actually found that the consumption of full-fat dairy decreases the risk of type 2 diabetes, and full-fat milk also does not have an effect on ovulation or fertility. But consumption of low-fat or skimmed milk decreases fertility. Another study found that increase in milk consumption by 1 serving every single day increases the risk of PCOS. But furthermore, this increase in risk was only seen by women who consumed low-fat or skimmed milk rather than consuming full-fat dairy in healthy women. So what does this actually tell us? That full-fat milk or dairy in general does not cause a risk to PCOS, ovulation, or fertility, but they have found that low-fat and skim milk does, mainly because the authors say that these low-fat or skim milk can be injected with steroids or growth hormones, which can negatively affect fertility. Now, this is very confusing and ambiguous, isn't it? because there is no really black and white answer on whether you should consume dairy or not. And like everything in nutrition, I don't think there is a black and white answer for every individual. Because while it does say that women with PCOS can consume dairy and that there are no negative effects on ovulation and fertility, there is no real clarity of whether low-fat milk, skim milk or full-fat milk is the right answer. And for you to take the right course of action, I would highly suggest that if you are suffering with PCOS or any other fertility issues, seek the help of a specialist. Go to an endocrine specialist, go to a gynecologist, see a clinical nutrition, a dietitian, and see what the right course of action is with your workout routine, with your food. Just don't assume that, oh, dairy is good for me, I can eat it, or dairy is not good for PCOS, so I should completely avoid it. Because if you look at it, eliminating dairy might not be a necessity, but if you do have a sensitivity or an intolerance, or even if you have an endocrine disorder and your body is just not coping with it, you might need to be off of it for a little bit or at least limit the consumption. But for that, you really need to know the root cause of the problem. I will say this though, the dairy that we get now and the dairy that I got as a kid, which was like maybe let's say 20 years ago, is definitely not the same. The dairy that we get now is injected with so many things. It has so many additives, so many preservatives, and it just doesn't taste like the milk that we used to get before. Which is why sometimes it can be harming, and it may not be necessarily dairy that is causing health problems, but it might be the additives and preservatives and all the extra things that goes into the dairy that we are consuming. But if you do want to get off of dairy, make sure that the non-dairy products that you are consuming do not have a lot of additives, do not have a lot of added sugars and just preservatives, because those can be a lot worse for your PCOS or hormone disorders or just weight gain, BMI, obesity risk in general than consuming dairy itself. That is all I have to say for now, you guys, and I know we don't really have a clear yes or no answer, but at least we can do away with the assumptions and dispel some myths and make a more informed choice. I hope. And I hope this video did give you some sort of information to simplify your nutrition habits and make eating a lot easier and a lot more enjoyable for you, because food is fuel. And next time I hope there's a lot more research to talk about so that I can give you much more clarity as well. But for now, do not forget to hit that like button if you did like this video and that little bell, because it really helps me and I really appreciate it. And I hope to see you guys next time. Bye!